All right, well, I'm calling to order the regular meeting of the Hubbardston Planning Board. Planning Board meetings are usually broadcasted live, although this one's not. It is being digitally recorded. This meeting is being held virtually through Google Meets pursuant to the rules extending the ability for public bodies to do such. So first on the agenda is public comments. Does anybody have any comments on anything that is not on the agenda? All right, well, moving forward into minutes acceptance, we have minutes that were placed in the drive for our previous meeting.
Bill Holman, so
I'd like to put a motion. I second the motion. Councilor Steiger.
Excellent. So, Bill, just because you're on the phone, please say your name when you.
Yes, I did. Bill Holman, I make the motion.
Excellent. Thank you. Sorry, it didn't come through clearly. All right. So and Francois second. So recognizing that we have first and a second discussion on minutes.
No, nothing on my end.
Yeah, they look pretty good to me.
Bill Holman.
All right. So if there's no further discussion, I'll call a vote on acceptance of the minutes, and done as a roll call vote. So I'll call your name and please then vote. So Francois Steiger.
Aye.
Bill Holman.
Thanks.
Was that an aye, Bill? It wasn't clear.
Someone approved the meeting minutes. The vote yes.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Erica Dack.
Aye.
And the chair is aye. The minutes are accepted. So moving down on the agenda, we have new business, which is the open space recreation plan. And to talk a little bit about what this document is for the benefit of the public that will be watching this when it is released on YouTube from being recorded. This is a document that the Open Space Committee has put together, and it talks about both the green spaces, the park spaces, conservation land, and the town's strategic position towards many of those properties. And it's a pretty lengthy document. It's just looking at the actual page count here. It's 120 pages, including exhibits. And as a matter of process, the Open Space Committee did they put together a subcommittee. They did a survey, and the committee's been working pretty hard on this for several months. They also reached out to stakeholder groups, and in the stakeholder groups, they recruited myself as a member of the planning board and also as a mountain biker. And they also recruited several other people from around town that either represent particular committees or particular user groups in the woods, and asked for feedback in the creation of it. So it was really a pretty well thought full process. It was actually run by Mark Cressage as a volunteer, and he did the really excellent quality work on it, the kind of work that he used to do for us. So with that, Patricia, can you just throw it up and we'll scroll through the table of contents on it. So I had an opportunity to read this in great detail a couple times and had a couple opportunities to submit comments on it. So I don't have a ton of comments for tonight because there's not a lot for me to say that I didn't previously say on it. Can you scroll down to the table of contents? And just for the benefit of the public, this, I don't know if this is available. Yeah, this was put on the town website recently when it got sent out for our approval. So this is available publicly. It is a public document. There's a lot of things that I think are particularly good about this document. For example, the folks from Open Space went in and they independently calculated some of the land use metrics that we use for policy making. that were previously done by MRPC, and MRPC has actually since adjusted some of those numbers, but this is yet another calculation of those, so we can have a little more faith in available land and such. I also think this document is really great for anyone who joins a board and committee that does any kind of policy making role, because they really did do an excellent job in their research in terms of talking about the environmental inventory and the history of the town and a lot of the stories behind the individual pieces. Excuse me. Can you scroll down a little bit more, Patricia? There's also some really great appendices in it. So the plan summary is there. I assume everybody has had a relative chance to look at it, but there's a statutory requirement for the planning board to give its blessing to this, despite the fact that it's not our document, although it does very much overlap with what we're currently working on with republishing our master plan. Can you scroll down a little bit more? So in terms of feedback that I think we could provide to this, I'll kick it off with a suggestion, just get the discussion going, because it's hard to say, hey, what's everybody's thoughts on this 120-page report that's really a challenge to read and work through. Is I would like to see a little bit more for specific recommendations on what the planning board can do to interact with this. And what I mean by that is recently I've been going through and watching training videos from American Trails. And one of the recent training videos that I watched was actually being put on by Craig DePena, who's a gentleman who's actually from Massachusetts. He's the executive director of something called the Norwottic Network. And they commissioned an economic study to be done on existing rail trails to find out if it was possible to estimate in some kind of scientific way what the impact of a rail trail can be on the community if it's being properly used and promoted. And they came back with some pretty meaningful numbers. I'll share that material to the board, and I know this is a question that's come up before on the board. And I know, Bill, specifically, you've asked this and it's like, well, what evidence do we actually have that shows that trails lead to economic development? Well, at the time he asked that question a couple of years ago, there wasn't a lot of great published data on it, but this document that came out recently is some published data on it. So the challenge that I would make to them and also make to us is we actually have a rail trail in town. It's the Ware River Rail Trail, and it runs through the western portion of the town. And there's currently a project going that's going to improve the connection of that trail to the Massachusetts Central Rail Trail, which is going to literally connect it to hundreds of miles of trails. So from our own backyard, you'll be able to access a network that has many hundreds of miles of trails in it. So I think we have a little bit of an inflection point on whether or not this is something that we consider a resource and something that we should incorporate in some of the plans that we're making, because that area of town is it's the area of town where the zoo church is, and there's kind of that old, it's laid out as if it was a previous town center many years ago. So there could be an opportunity there to potentially do something in conjunction with what we're doing with a rural opportunity bylaw, and perhaps in a narrow area where the trail crosses the road, where the town recently put in a grant for a beacon project, where there's an opportunity to potentially do some zoning there for businesses that could be supportive of that kind of rail trail use. So I wanted to at least throw that out and start that as an idea for discussion. So does anybody else have any other specific thoughts about the plan or on the suggestion that I'm making for feedback?
This is Francois Steiger. I'm starting to get into this here. There's a lot of very good information. I would love to be able to have the opportunity to completely read it and review it and then provide my feedback. I mean, from the get-go, what I'm saying is at least in the first 10, 15 pages I've been able to read thus far, it seems very high quality. There's a lot of good information in here, a lot of very current information, a couple of small little items here and there, like for example on page 5, I see a figure that you can link, but I don't see the figure on this page itself. Mine are little items like this here, but overall, I think this is great. I would enjoy reading this here and providing a full feedback for our next meeting so that we can do approval. Unless you, as chair, are you expecting us to give you a yes or no today, or can we?
Well, I wanted to start the discussion on it because recognizing that it's a 120-page document and that we all have jobs and other commitments, and it's tough to be like, I'm going to crank through all of that right now. So if the board was to suggest that we should hold off on a little bit, Patricia and Nate, do you know off the top of your head what the deadline for feedback? Although I think we fall into a little bit of a unique place because we're required feedback.
Give me 30 seconds.
I have a copy of the forms. It's not on the feedback form. Yeah, I agree that. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I'd like to set a little more to it. I don't want to rush through this document.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, we can certainly hold off on it. I don't feel we need to rush through it myself because I think it is important, and this is something that's been, excuse me, kind of rushed through previously, and they're doing a great job. Oh, we got Peter. So yeah, Erica, I don't know if you have any thoughts, but I think it sounds like we're all leaning towards tabling it for our next meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
May 17th.
Yeah, so we have time. So that doesn't even put us into the crunch with what's going to be essentially a mega meeting for us on the 18th.
I would appreciate having that time for a review. Again, I find the information very interesting, and definitely would like to get into some of the details here.
All right. So let's table it then. If anybody has, hopefully the discussion that we just had frames it for folks in terms of what it is and why it's important and how we can work with it. So that should give some more direction for kind of looking through it. So I'll work with Patricia. I don't know if, I guess we should talk about it now, because we should probably push it to the meeting after the 18th if we have until 17th to respond.
Yeah, I can add it to the agenda for the very first week of May, since that one is wide open currently. I don't think we will have anything else for that day, seeing as the next meeting is quite large.
Well, I'm sure there'll be a lot of carryover business.
I'm sure there'll be carryover business, and this is a perfect way to just wrap up everything with a bow, not just the stuff that has for the public hearing, but also the open space committee. And I think that'll give people plenty of time to review.
Excellent.
And I will also let Mark know that we will be doing our approval at that meeting. So even if maybe we reach out and have him come, maybe answer any questions that we may have on the document, would be a good idea, but that's up to you.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, so that's tabled for a future meeting. I'm happy we at least had an opportunity to discuss it and frame it because there's a lot to it. So moving along on the agenda, the next item is administrative matters and then matters not reasonably anticipated by chair. So there are some updates that fall into here. The first update is we received the co-location application from Verizon for the tower that is on Main Street. There is currently a process and legal issue we are working for, and we've reached out to town council to get advice on that issue. The applicant has asserted that that this application should be treated as a minor engineering change. Whereas our zoning bylaws suggest that this should be treated as a full special permit process. Now, there are some points of law that support the applicant's position, but my sense of the board is that we would really want our own town council to weigh in on that before we made any kind of decision to not follow the process that was outlined in the bylaws. So that was done, hopefully, I guess to add to that, these applications only have a 60-day shot clock, or else they're administratively approved in that 60 days. So when we got it, I immediately just made the decision to do that because my sense of the board is that the board would choose to do that. And because of the extremely short shot clock, it was an emergency and we couldn't delay. We couldn't hold to talk about it. We just needed to get that into the pipeline. There's also only a 10-day period where you can kick the application out. And it has to really be pretty deficient in order to do that. So that's where we ended up on it. So we're currently waiting on an opinion from town council on the appropriate process to follow, because our bylaw does appear to conflict with state law. But I wanted to get that news to the board and see if anybody had any questions or specific concerns about it.
What is the cut up for all them to get at it?
I'm sorry, Bill, part of that was cutting out. I couldn't understand the question.
What date for us? Last day we have to vote before they actually get approval.
I got a little more of the question that time. Were you asking what happens if they don't get the vote for approval? Can you try the question one more time? Can you hear us at all, Bill? Oh, it's 60 days. I think I understand the question now. 60 days from Monday is when they would get the automatic approval if we took no action. And the way the spectrum law is written, it's really pretty tough. It's tougher than the Telephone Communications Act. So that's why it's pretty urgent, because we might end up having to add this to the mega meeting on the 18th, or it'll be the lead off business at the May meeting. I'm not expecting their application that they submitted so far, I believe, has been added to the drive and made available to everybody. And other than some administrative or typographical mistakes in it. It seems fairly reasonable, but I really think we need the question on process answered by town council. Although it will be nice for us to all have reliable internet and cell phones, as this meeting is demonstrating. Does anybody else have any questions on that? Okay. And the other updates is we've sent the other items out for public notice. So we're expecting to be a go for the meeting. That's going to include the rural opportunity, the battery energy storage, and the special permit application from Paper Crane. So with that's the end of the administrative updates and matters not anticipated by chair.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry if I missed this part, but I caught the matter you were going to be sending to town council for clarification. Would you mind just reviewing that question that's going to town council one more time, please?
Yeah, the question that's going to town council is the applicant is alleging that there's a conflict between our local zoning article, our wireless bylaw article, and a piece of law called the Spectrum Act. And the Spectrum Act suggests that the co-location of equipment, as long as it doesn't change the height of the tower by more than 10% or 10 feet, should be treated as a minor change, which is obviously in conflict with our bylaw. But my assertion is that we should have our town council rule on that and give us an opinion instead of just relying on what an applicant's suggesting. Although I have no reason to not take the applicant at their face on it. They are practicing attorneys.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, and especially with the connection issues that everybody seems to have, I'll make one more call for public comments, and then I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn. All right. So hearing no additional comment, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'm Erica Dack. I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Excellent. And do we have a second from Bill?
I'll make a motion. I'll make the second for the motion.
Excellent. Thank you. So hearing a first and a second, the motion is non-debatable. So calling a roll call vote, Erica Dack,
Aye.
Bill Holman,
And
and Francois dropped off, but we still have a quorum, and the chair votes aye. So thank you all for joining. It was good to at least have a quick discussion about getting that stuff kicked off. And I'm sorry about any confusion about the text messages getting out late. But have a good night, everyone.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.